Listen, I want to say this to you tonight. You are in a safe place to be in process. You are in a safe place to have more questions than you have answers. You are in a safe place to be the individuals that you were designed to be, and you are in a safe place to believe in the power of community again. You are standing among a fellowship of seekers, sojourners, lovers, doubters, worshipers, artists, mothers and fathers, craftsmen and creatives, movers and shakers, tongue talkers and Quakers, business owners and bakers, all who share a similar conviction that art and faith are intrinsically interwoven and essential to the fullness of our human experience. And we haven't gathered here so much to tell you what to believe, so much as we have gathered to bear witness to what we have seen. We have gathered to make a space for encounter because all creativity begins with encounter. Creativity begins in a posture of rest. It begins in a posture of receptivity. It begins and ends in that elusive sense of faith, of curiosity, in permission to play and to explore without fear, without shame, to consider, to circle around, to chew the cud, to spit out the bones. And the encounters we're gonna have this weekend are going to resonate in your coming days. See, this event doesn't end Sunday morning after the last gathering. But this event carries on because seeds are being planted in the soil of your heart this weekend. Relationships are gonna be formed this weekend that are gonna go on to produce incredible fruit in your lives. And I wanna say, and I wanna encourage you guys that a lot of what you're gonna experience this weekend is not only gonna come from what happens up here on the stage, but it's gonna come through the conversations that you have, through interacting with the art installation in the back, and I'm gonna tell you more about that in just a minute. It's gonna happen through encounters with art in the gallery. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with, there's two guys that I wanna name drop right quick. The first one is Ludwig von Zinzendorf. You guys know who he is? He was one of the fathers of the Moravian movement, and you're actually on Moravian land here in Winston-Salem. You know what I'm saying? And Zinzendorf had this encounter when he went into an art museum and he stood before a painting. It was a painting of Jesus, and he was so convicted by the painting and so moved by the painting, and then underneath it, it said, "This I have done for you, what have you done for me?" And he stood there and he was so impacted by his encounter with that painting that when he got up and left the gallery, he went on and started a missions movement that just sent hundreds of people all around the world, and he began to change culture by sitting in front of a painting. The second story, the second name drop, is the Dutch priest Henry Nouwen. And I love Henry Nouwen. Henry Nouwen is one of my heroes. I love his writings. His book, The Return of the Prodigal Son, will change your life. But Henry Nouwen had an experience where he was in a gallery and he sat before Rembrandt's painting of The Return of the Prodigal Son, and he got transfixed in front of this painting and could not move for 5 hours. And when he got up from there, the entire course of his life had been altered. And see, I think that the way that we encounter God and the way that we encounter one another and the way that we encounter creativity and wisdom, it doesn't just come from a stage. It comes through this organic interaction. You know what's beautiful? Molly doesn't know this, or maybe she did, but the art installation in the back that I partnered with Jessica Taylor and Amy Cruz and myself, we put this together. Jessica brought the beautiful cocoons, and if you look at that organic matter in the middle of the installation, it's actually a body coming up out of the grave. Go take a look at it at some point tonight, and I'm gonna tell you how you can interact with that as well. But this weekend, and this is very important, all right? You're gonna hear from a variety of voices. We do this sort of in short talk fashion. Some of the voices you're gonna hear are gonna challenge you. Some of the voices you're gonna hear may even concern you. Whereas others will aspire and affirm what's already at work in your heart. Some of them may comfort you while others may actually disturb you. and that's okay. In fact, it's not by accident, but it's by design. Because, and I mean this especially for our faith communities, that sometimes, and I don't mean this as a criticism at all, hear me out, but sometimes we can get a bit tribally minded, or we can get a bit insulated in the subcultures that we feel comfortable in. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes that comfort can actually hinder our growth and make us ineffective in some ways. But I don't believe that's who we are. And I believe that everyone has a gift to offer. Every perspective needs the respect to be heard, even if it does nothing but affirm your convictions. Some of my atheist friends have built my faith more than they ever intended. And so I know for some of you guys, it was challenging perhaps even to bring yourself to this gathering. And if that's you, I wanna commend you for your bravery. I wanna commend you because you've already positioned yourself to receive something life-changing just by showing up. And I was talking to my friend David Olinger, who's the worship pastor here at the church recently, and I said, you know, after talking to some people, I've discovered that some people are intimidated to come to a creative arts gathering. And I said, why do you think that is? I didn't understand why that was intimidating for some people. And he thought about it and he looked at me and said, you know, I think it's because some people are afraid that if they come, it's gonna confirm all the suspicions that they've had about themselves, that they aren't creative enough, that they aren't a real artist, that they don't have what it takes. And I thought about that and I said, wow. But what if the opposite is true? What if you've been brought here to discover instead that you are more creative than you ever suspected yourself to be? What if you were brought here to learn that the Creator himself has an intention toward your creative expressions that you've hidden in your heart? What if you've come to discover that it's in your DNA as a human being to be a conduit of creative expression? What if that's God's design for our lives? And what if the creativity that you're carrying is the solution to one of the world's desperate cries for help? What if the creativity you're carrying is the healing for someone in this room? What if your creativity is a spark that will start a movement like Zinzendorf, or to change the nations? And all you have to do is step past that thin veil of fear and intimidation, which we already did, right? So we are here to liberate the creative spark. Represent, drop the beat. Being created in the image of God means that to a finite degree, our words and our imagination create the reality that we live in. It's why it's important that we as artists get free to create what God's put in our hearts to do, to liberate that creative spark, because what we innovate is what our children inherit. And we often talk about in our Christian circles about how we want the kingdom to come to the earth as it is in heaven. And it's my personal conviction that the process of bringing heaven to earth is not just caught up in a momentary experiential bliss, but it's in thinking with a generational, eternal mindset. Ray Hughes always told me to write the songs your grandchildren will sing. And this is even one reason why I feel like that creation care, stewarding the environment, these things have a spiritual root in my life. And you guys will notice throughout the weekend that we're making some efforts to actually do some of that. But I believe that it's because when we look after the creation, we're not living for ourselves, we're living with a generational mindset, because we're taking care of what we're gonna leave to our kids and their kids. And I think there's a subtle yet important distinction that we have to make in our journey toward liberating this creative spark. And it's this: faith is a key component to the creative process, because imagination deals with faith, the ability to see that which is not yet manifest and call it into being through the creative working of our hands. So whereas faith is the key component of creative expression, religion is one of the greatest hindrances of creative expression. Because religion deals with fear and control, but the creative spirit deals with life, freedom, and playful exploration. So we want to get free this weekend for the sake of ourselves, our world, and our children. What do you say?